In the middle of the road, Carl and Vera are driving, and they suddenly need to find a place to go to the bathroom. They found a restaurant on the side of the road in the nearest town, but there seemed to be no one here, and the door was locked. Even so, Vera still decided to go back to find the bathroom, but found a torn tent on the ground. The problem is that there is a wallet and a mobile phone next to the tent, which indicates that someone has lost something, and even worse, something may have happened. After using the bathroom, the young woman hurried back to the car and told Carl that she had found a tent behind the gas station. Her boyfriend didn't take it seriously and thought it was just garbage, but Vera suspected that something bad had happened there. After driving a few kilometers, the car's fuel was about to run out, and they needed to find a gas station quickly. On the way, the couple saw a woman's car parked in the middle of the road. He thought it was a problem with the battery, and Carl immediately offered to help, and Vera tried to break the situation and talk to the lady. However, when the lady saw that Vera was not wearing a wedding ring, she was very unhappy and began to ask some embarrassing questions. She even accused Vera of being like her boyfriend, who was the kind of person who didn't want to make a promise. All this talk made Vera uncomfortable, and she told Carl to get out of there and continue their journey. On the way back, the two quarreled over the incident just now. Vera said they shouldn't have stopped to help that woman, but Carl thought the lady was just in a bad mood that day. He just wanted to help her. The conversation was soon interrupted because they saw a small restaurant and decided to stop. In the restaurant, they only ordered coffee and water, but the waiter insisted that they try hamburgers and fries. When they were eating snacks, Carl noticed a strange man sitting in front of the counter, staring at the TV. The problem is that the TV is off, but he still looks like he's hypnotized. Vera also felt the same way, but she said it was better to pay the bill and continue on the road. So she left Carl to pay the bill and go back to the car. But when he passed by the man next to the counter, he turned to Vera and warned her that they were not safe there. The young woman was shocked. Carl asked what happened, but Vera tried to cover it up and insisted that they go back to the car. The journey continued. Carl noticed that his girlfriend was nervous about the man at the counter, but he wanted to put it aside and find a place to rest, and drove a few meters forward. They found a gas station and decided to refuel and ask for directions. When they walked into the store, Carl asked the shopkeeper if there was a hotel where they could spend the night. The shopkeeper told them there was a small house nearby, and then showed them the way. He said the owner of the small house would give them a very good accommodation price. Carl and Vera thanked him for his help and went to the place. They did not doubt that the gas station owner was looking at them suspiciously through the window. When they approached the entrance of the small house, Vera felt that there was something strange around and asked Carl to go back. However, his boyfriend thought he was making a fuss, and they both needed to rest, because they had been driving for several hours on the road and had never rested. Finally, they arrived at the parking lot of the manor and saw a few cars parked there. This made Carl more certain that this place was safe, so the two of them walked to the small house and saw a goat sign on the floor in front of the entrance. Vera thought it was strange again, but Carl thought the goat was just suspicious. The two of them then went to the place. This place looked empty, but there were a few dirty plates on the table in front of, indicating that there were guests in the small house. The couple then went upstairs to find someone, but found a strange man looking for one of the rooms. He soon showed that he was the owner here and welcomed the new guests. He promised to take them to the empty room in the second small house. When they arrived, the man said that this place was used by the former owner, Mrs. Anderson, to receive church groups and children. But after she passed away, she became a manager and turned the small house into a summer hotel. The conversation continued, but Vera was tired from the journey and asked the man to allow them to rest. The owner was dissatisfied with this young woman's attitude, saying that he just wanted to chat because he rarely received so many guests. Nevertheless, he still let the couple rest in the bedroom. Then they left, and Carl was rude to his girlfriend. Vera apologized, saying that she just needed to relax. Carl said he understood. The two of them were about to go to bed, but they didn't notice that there was blood on the bedside table. When night fell, the couple fell asleep, but under the bed, a man in a sheep mask got up and controlled the two of them. The next morning, Vera woke up trapped in a cage with a wound on his face. He tried to escape, but another man in a sheep mask began to hit the cage with a stick. He forced Vera to stay quiet, and then he went to his colleague. Vera then tried to pick up a stone next to the cage. With great effort, Vera finally got the stone and tried to lock it, but failed. Not long after, another masked man in a cow mask walked into Vera. He held a steel bucket in his hand. As soon as he opened the lid, a liquid poured into Vera's body, causing her to lose consciousness. A few hours later, Vera woke up in a warehouse. Her hands were tied to a chair, and her legs were hanging on a wooden frame. Not long after, a woman in a rabbit mask appeared and applied a substance to Vera's lower body. Vera tried to resist, but her efforts were in vain. After the woman left, Vera was left alone, But not long after, other masked men appeared. They just let Vera loose from the chair and brought her back to the cage. For the fourth time, Vera was pushed by a wheelbarrow, observing this place that looked like an ordinary farm. However, the masked man was conducting an evil experiment on the victim. One of the organs was cut off by a masked man. Finally, Vera was taken to a cell like a stable. She ran to the window to look for her boyfriend. Not far away, Carl woke up and found himself trapped in a warehouse. He was wearing a mask on his mouth, and he soon realized that he was not alone. He shouted, but the prisoners were just looking for hope of escape. Not long after, the masked man appeared. They pushed a handcart and were ready to take everyone away. They hooked the prisoner's neck with a haystack and pulled them up. Then they knocked them out with a hammer. Carl even tried to resist, but he was hit by the hammer and fainted. He was taken away with the other prisoners. The masked man then took the victim to another storage room. He gave their belongings to a colleague wearing a dog mask. After he put everything in the drawer, he left with a bag full of human arms. When he was walking on the farm, the truth was gradually revealed. This farm is a small village. The masked man lived here and conducted experiments. As soon as he arrived at the restaurant, he put his arm in the kitchen. Then he talked to a colleague and gave him a lot of money. After that, the two took out a cage with another prisoner in the car, put him in the stable. After work, the masked man went to see his boss. The boss is the owner of the small house. He told the masked man that a customer named Roan had ordered a meal. 3 hours later, the last batch of goods was delayed. The owner ordered the workers to speed up, because they can't lose such an important customer. After the order, he received a call from Roan. Roan wants to confirm that the meal will be ready according to the agreement. The boss replied, yes, and let the masked man start preparing a new dress. Then the two went to the stable, see the women being locked in the cage. Not only that, they are all breastfeeding. Farm workers collect their milk with machines. Then the truth was revealed. The female prisoners, like Vera, have undergone unnatural sterilization procedures. If this is not evil enough, then all the cruelty and hatred should be turned into innocence. When the masked man walked into the stable, he saw a prisoner holding a newborn. He cowardly took the baby away from his mother's arms. He put the baby on a heavy machine and finally threw it away. The mother of the baby and all the female prisoners can only cry in this terrible scene. The owner of the farm did not care. He also sent employees to collect the rest of the milk. When the two of them left, the worker with the goat mask reappeared. He is the gas station boss who took Vera and Carl to the house. He is also a member of the farm team. Although the women are crying around him, he didn't care, just took a bottle of milk. However, the young woman who lost her child tried to take off the chain on her mouth and started yelling at her. He accused her of being a crazy criminal. This angered the man. He refuted that this was all the fault of the cruel human race. A few minutes later, another farm worker, a tall man with a horse mask, heard the sound coming from the stable. He went to the stable and took a closer look at one of the cages. Then he went to tell the boss. Not far away, in the owner's office, he was talking to another client. This is the man with the horse mask. He warned the boss that something had happened in the stable. When the owner arrived, he saw a prisoner who was no longer alive. He had a stick on his neck. This is the prisoner who was taken away by the child, and the prisoner who had confronted the farm worker. The owner was very dissatisfied with this. He sent a masked man to arrest the owner, because he destroyed one of the owner's most valuable goods. He must be punished. At the same time, Mara was still in his cell. He heard women panting on the other side. He looked out the window and found another prisoner. He asked what happened there, and how can they escape. However, this young prisoner was seriously injured. He said there was no way out of this place. He had been trapped in this nightmare for 2 years, and all the women were used to provide milk to the owner of the farm. To do this, they did a non-natural shock to the prisoner, let them stay out of date. However, he realized that he could never get pregnant again. He just wanted to end his life and get rid of this torture. When he heard this, Mara was in despair. But then he heard the cry of another young prisoner, Anna. He saw that there were other survivors in the same situation. Mara gathered up his courage. He swore to find a way out of the farm. When he was thinking about how to escape, the mask-wearing worker was searching for Ender on the whole farm. When he arrived at a warehouse, he saw that the door was broken. When he walked into the room, he found that Ender was hiding inside and talking to himself. When he walked in, the masked man saw that his colleague was hurting him. He kept telling himself that he didn't want to end the prisoner's life. Ender was in despair. He said that the woman made him angry, so he needed to be punished. Even so, the masked man still took him to the boss. The boss asked Ender why he didn't stay at the gas station. As a punishment, the master ordered him to do housework, and there must be someone watching him all the time, so that he doesn't make mistakes again. His first task was to feed the prisoner, so he went to the kitchen with the mask-wearing man. He brought a big bucket of unknown mutton. Then they put the food in front of the cage. It's like a farmer feeding a pig. However, when it was time to feed the prisoner, Ender accidentally dropped everything on the ground. Then he ran away. Because he was afraid of being punished again, he ran to the swimming pool and tried to hide in a greenhouse nearby. Even so, the masked man still managed to find him, but Ender ran away again. He also brought a plate of plants. The man continued to chase Ender. He finally found him in the kitchen. At this time, Ender was staying by the master's side. Ender pretended nothing had happened to the boss, and gave him a bottle of cow's eye. He said it could be used as a seasoning for the banquet. The master was satisfied with him. Then he ordered the masked man to go to the barn, bring back the female prisoner who could never get pregnant again. They obeyed the order. When they arrived, they found that the young woman was too weak to stand up. However, they had no mercy. After hanging his arm with a rope, the masked man beat his neck. He accepted the life of this prisoner. Finally, they took out his organs. These organs were used as food for the banquet. On the other side of the cell, Ender was horrified to see all this. He began to feel that he had no chance to escape from this farm. A few minutes passed. When the young Ender was about to fall asleep, he heard someone knocking on the door. Not long after, his cell door was opened. On the other side of the door was Ender. He somehow escaped from his cage. Although his head was hit by a hammer and bruised, he still called Ender to leave this place as soon as possible. Then, the two ran out of the cell and walked into the manor, in order not to be discovered by the workers of the farm. After a lot of effort, they managed to escape from the farm. There was a house in front of them. There was a truck parked next to the house. Ender did not waste time and let Ender rest on the side. He tried to start the truck by himself, but the truck would not start. A few seconds later, a masked man appeared at the scene. The couple was forced to hide behind the truck's body. The man realized that someone had opened the door of the truck. He went to see if anyone was around, but Ender hid in time. The man has been looking for Ender, but there was a siren in the distance. He went to see what happened. With this opportunity, Ender managed to escape. They continued to look for the exit. At this time, they found a house that looked like a church. After entering, they noticed a wall in this place. There was a picture of the saint hanging on the wall, but the picture was covered with the same mask as those people on the farm. At this time, Ender looked out the window. He saw a masked man passing by. He quickly hid with Ender. Not long after, the man with the cow mask sat on a chair and began to pray silently. The couple decided to escape while he was distracted, but the masked man noticed that someone was nearby. He walked towards the two fugitives. Because Ender was injured and could not walk normally, Vera tried to help him move. Unfortunately, they did not realize that there was a bear trap ahead. As a result, Ender's leg was trapped in the trap. At the same time, the masked man began to knock on the bell of the church, reminding his colleagues that a prisoner was trying to escape. Then he walked towards the couple. Vera tried to solve the trap and save his boyfriend. However, when the masked man was getting closer and closer, he apologized and left Ender on the ground. He ran to the countryside. Before he left, he looked back for the last time. He saw another masked man. The two masked men moved a heavy stone from the ground and turned to Carl. Carl did not stand up immediately and did not try to resist. His head was smashed by the stone. In the distance, Vera cried at a terrible scene, but he had to keep moving towards a bridge. On the other side of the bridge, he found a stable. Just a few seconds before the farm owner and Ender arrived at the scene, he hid behind the wall. Fortunately, neither of them noticed his presence. Vera saw a prisoner alive in one of the cages. She ran to the man without being noticed and asked him how he could escape. He replied that the only way was to find the bus that transported the prisoner. If he put it in a cabinet in the owner's house. Vera ran away after thanking him, but as soon as he left the stable, Ender and the owner saw him running away and knew where he was going. Outside, Vera tried to find the owner's house. At this time, he saw a masked woman approaching. He hid without hesitation in a plastic bag with a corpse. He was not found by that employee. Then he saw another masked man refueling at a gas station on the farm. He followed him to the parking lot. When he arrived, a young woman saw a hammer and a tool in the back. She picked up the tool without hesitation, walked up to the masked man, and smashed his head. The man fainted, but the other masked men began to retreat. Vera hurried into the car and tried to start it. Just as they were about to catch up, he successfully started the car and stepped on the gas. He hit Vera's head with full speed. Everything seemed to show that Vera was able to escape. Unfortunately, the dashboard showed that the mailbox was frozen. Not long after, the car began to slow down. He had no choice but to run away on foot. Finally, he ran to the kitchen. 3 masked men were still chasing him. Vera desperately fled to the basement. There, he found an exit. When he tried to open the door, the masked man came up and grabbed him. He barely opened the passage, but a masked man grabbed his leg. Fortunately, Vera was still holding the tool. He smashed his opponent's arm to escape. When he ran out of the kitchen, he saw the barn where he was trapped and found the bus with the prisoner next to it. Before he got out of the car, he opened Anna's door and called the girl to run away. But just as the prisoner said, The bus key was in a piece of furniture in the house. The two ran to the master bedroom. Through the window, they saw the key on the table. Vera grabbed the key and rushed to the bus. In the end, Vera and Anna got on the bus and were about to leave, but they found all the seats were full of masked people sitting in the farm. A few hours later, the owner of the farm with the Galion mask sat next to the table with all the employees. Anna and Vera were in front of them. Although they resisted, they were still captured. Now they are the main dish of this group of criminals. Okay, that's all for today's video. If you are interested in this movie, why don't you go and see the original film? If you think my explanation is good, please give me a like. Your support is the biggest motivation for me to continue to create. See you next time.